I'm home. Oh, I forgot. I'm not married.
Aha, yes. The silver screen signal is lighting up the night sky again, which can only mean one thing. It's time for another seasonally appropriate deep dive. About 3 years and roughly 130 episodes ago, we reviewed Tim Burton's Batman. There'll be a link in the description if you fancy revisiting that one. Tonight, we're heading back to Gotham for its darker, snowier, and far stranger sequel, the infamous alternative Christmas classic, Batman Returns. I am your regular host, Mike Wilson, and joining me today are two brilliant guests who've both been here before and couldn't resist diving into this one. First up, she's on her third podcast in a row and our own personal hero, or should that be Batwoman? It's Sandy Eavenson. Welcome, Sandy.
Hello, here I am again.
Yay. Although I think you were scheduled for this one, as I recall, rather than jumping in last minute. So, yeah.
I'm not sure. I actually don't remember anymore. But yeah, happy to be here, especially with hearing Vean loves it so much. And I can tell you love it because every time I ask you something about it, you respond with a GIF from the movie. So
No, I don't. I respond with a GIF. Let's not get into that argument. But no, well, hopefully my views and opinions will become clear. I don't really want to heavily spoiler it, but I don't think any of us are here to trash the movie. Let's put it that way. So
yeah, for once.
Yeah. Yes, and that other voice you hear is my other guest, joining us, a lady who's long claimed Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman as her personal life goal. It's Vean.
Hi, guys. And yeah, for once, you're not going to hear a bunch of criticisms from me. Get ready for 2 hours of gushing. This is the best Batman movie. Don't fucking talk to me about Christopher Nolan.
Oh, wow. You started so positive and then immediately alienated a good chunk of the audience.
Well, that's what I do, Mike, you know.
Exactly. And we'd expect nothing less. Right. I truly can't believe you did that. But anyway, we'll jump into all the gothic weirdness, twisted romance, and Christmas chaos soon. But before we dig too deep, I want to start where I always do, by asking basically, what was your first experience with the film and what impact it had on you when you first saw it? And let's go. I'll start with you, Vean. I've kind of got to. You wanted to be on this episode so heavily, and you've talked about it lots. So I'd love to know what your initial experience was.
I love this movie so much. I was just telling Mike before we actually started filming or recording, I should say, that I didn't even do a rewatch because I'm so intimately familiar with this movie. I remember the trailer because me and my dad and my brother were going to see Sister Act, if you guys remember that movie.
Oh,
And
yeah.
what a smash hit that was. And they were just starting to really promote Batman Returns because the original Batman had been such a success. So there was that really big campaign for this movie. And the trailer came out and it just gave me chills. And I was what, 9? And I was already a huge Tim Burton fangirl. I just didn't know it. It wasn't until I was a teenager that I actually connected the dots that the same person directed all these different movies I loved. And so I didn't even know yet that I was Tim Burton's biggest fangirl. But yeah, I remember seeing the trailer and just like I said, chills. And my dad bought us both baseball hats at the movie theater. There were these black baseball hats with the Batman logo. Mine was blue. My brother's was red, and we just wore those and all the time, and we were just so hyped for this movie. And then it came out, and for me, it did not disappoint. Um, I saw it over and over and over and over, and I was just enamored, particularly with Catwoman. But it was my first. It began my love affair with Christopher Walken. Let's say it that way, and to be as dedicated to a role as Danny DeVito was in this. We were watching It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia last night, and Mr. Lady Vian was like, I can't believe this classical, amazing actor is on this show. And I'm like, did you not see Batman Returns? Because he goes all in with whatever he does. And I'm sorry, Michael Keaton is the only Batman. I mean, he is. He is the definitive Bruce Wayne Batman combo. He's the only one who can carry off both characters. And yeah, so I saw it over and over and over. Got the book, which I think, Mike, I told you about. I have this original movie companion book from 92, and I just have all these little treasure troves in the back of my mind from that book. And
nice.
yeah, and just I love this movie. So I'm really excited to talk about it.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to your views, but I will say the definitive Batman has been and will always be Kevin Conroy. So I'll just, I love
Oh,
Michael
okay,
Keaton, but
fair.
and I mean Adam West, for what it is. If you're doing the
Yeah.
whole parody thing, but yeah, an entire generation did grow up with Adam West though, because I remember my parents absolutely just did not warm to these films when they first came out, and my dad. I didn't put it in the audience response, but he gave the same response he has ever since it came out, which is, I can't see anything, it's in the bloody dark. And, well, I'll come to you next then, Sandy, and ask what was your first impression of Batman Returns and the impact it had on you?
Well, I actually did see this in the cinema when it came out. I was 16, so I was at the movies actually quite a bit. And I was really excited for it because I liked the first Batman. They had really reached a younger audience, I think, because of the prevalence of Prince's Bat Dance on MTV. It was on a million times a day. And incidentally, I went and watched that video last night, and that song is not good, but I really was into it back then.
Hardy Man is clearly the better song from that soundtrack, but yeah.
But so it didn't, have it didn't have as much impact with my friends, I remember, and I remember being apart from them and how I felt about it. And that really these were the first two Batman films or experience with Batman on film or TV that I experienced. And it really sparked my love affair with both Batman in film and Tim Burton. So, that was the impact it did have on me. But it's not my favorite Batman. It's not my favorite Tim Burton, but it was certainly like the start of both of those, if you get what I'm saying.
Okay,
And
yeah,
I
like
I do like it. Yeah.
yeah. No, I
And
get what you're saying. So out of curiosity, what is your favorite Batman and Tim Burton film then?
my favorite Tim Burton is probably, God, there's so many, but the one that springs to mind, and maybe it's because of this time of year, is Edward Scissorhands. I really,
It's good.
but I mean, man, I just watched Sleepy Hollow a couple weeks ago. I love the visuals on that one as well.
Okay.
So it's really hard to choose. I wasn't prepared for that. And then
Sorry, I wasn't going to ask, but it's just the way you mentioned it. I was like, oh, I have to.
yeah,
Batman.
my favorite Batman is, unpopular opinion, it's pretty much always whichever one just came out. I like them all, even when it's so funny when Ben Affleck was first announced as Batman. I remember getting on Twitter and typing "no" with so many O's after it. I was so disappointed. And then when it came out, I liked it. I felt the same way about Robert Pattinson. I'm like, I just don't see how he can pull this off. And then when it came out, I loved it. So I'm very impressionable, I guess. But I like every Batman. I like Val Kilmer. I like them all. I like Christian Bale. I just I don't dislike any. So I'm lucky that way. That's my perspective. I feel fortunate. And then,
sorry, Vean wanted to interject with something. I think I don't know if you heard. Vean, you were saying.
I was just going to say that Tim Burton's masterpiece is Big Fish. It is his absolute definitive masterpiece of a film. That would be on a Tim Burton review. But if you guys haven't seen that, if anybody who's listening hasn't seen it, oh my God, Mike, it is the masterpiece is all I ever come back to with that movie.
Sorry, yeah, you were saying then, Sandy. Sorry if you want to carry on.
Just that there was a phase 2. The film kind of went forgotten for a long time, and my parents actually had the VHS, and my daughter and sister for a period of time had it on repeat. And my daughter remembers it very, very, very well too. So when I mentioned I was doing it, she kept talking about the film, while I was watching it and stuff, and her memories of it. It just like hit another generation years later.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, as for me, my experience, well, since we've all given our age, I was 10 when it first came out, and we kind of didn't go to the cinema much anyway. It was a rare treat, which is why I always remember the films that I saw, and the first one being Jurassic Park when I was 11. So I wouldn't have seen this at the cinema anyway, but I certainly wouldn't because it was and is rated 15 in the UK. So there's no way a 10-year-old kid would have gotten in to see it. So it probably was when I was 11 when this came out on video in the UK that I first saw it. And I can remember vaguely. I don't know if we rented it or if my dad just bought it straight away, because when Batman 89 came out, we were kind of all culturally suckered into the kind of promo for it. And I haven't really, at that point, I hadn't given any indication that I particularly loved Batman or anything. But because it was just the big thing and, hey, boys' toys for Christmas, for the Christmas of whichever year it was, 89 or 90, I got like a toy Batmobile that fired missiles, a toy water pistol, batarang, Batman action figures and stuff, because they were just unavoidable. And I think my parents were just like, oh, well, he's a boy. He's going to like this, I guess. So I kind of was forced into liking Batman 89 and did. Thankfully, I enjoyed the movie. So I just remember my dad having a copy of Batman Returns on video, even though he complains about the movie, and seeing it for the first time on VHS and just being... A lot of my impact, I think, was kind of similar to some of the more negative responses that we'll get to when I talk about the BTS stuff. In that, yeah, I mean, I was very young, and I think my initial impact was just like, "Where's Batman?" But at the same time, I also really liked the movie for what it was as a film in its own right, and it was very definitely a sexual awakening when it comes to Michelle Pfeiffer and Catwoman in general. Bear in mind, again, I was 11 when I first saw this, so. Yeah, that was a very awakening moment, or 2 or 3 in the film. So, and yeah, I over the years, I've just come to sorry, what was that?
I was laughing at you, or 2 or 3.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, and over the years, I've just come to appreciate it more and more. And like you say, I think it's really tough, but it might be my favorite Tim Burton film. It's definitely not my favorite Batman film because it's not a particularly good Batman film. It's a good film, but as a Batman
It
movie,
is a wonderful Batman film. How dare you?
I mean, like I said, it's a great movie. It's not a great Batman movie. Batman is very sidelined, and he doesn't really have a lot to do. But I do love the relationship Bruce and Selina stuff, and there is a little bit more of Batman than I think some people complained about, including me at the time. But yeah, I don't know if we were ready for it because it is so Burton influenced and so gothic and so kind of weird, even after Batman 89 had kind of started that trend.
Yeah.
And
Well, it was interesting. I don't know if this happened over there, but over here, the hype for this movie was huge, and they were really marketing it hugely towards children.
yeah.
Obviously, because they wanted to merchandise and cash in. And so I remember there were McDonald's toys, which I still have mine, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Awesome. Yeah.
I do. It's Catwoman in a car that doesn't appear in the movie, but hey, um, whatever. They were marketing to kids, and so when it came out, people were like, especially the right, were like, "Oh, the children! How can we expose the children to this?" And so it got a lot of really negative pushback in that regard, which is funny to me because as a 9-year-old, I'm like, this is me on film. I mean, this is, this is so. In fact, I had a friend watch it for the first time last year, and she goes, "Wow, Batman 1992 invented Lady Vean." I'm like, "Yeah, pretty much."
I
So,
did introduce you saying that, to be fair.
so
Yeah.
I just think it's interesting that there was this big build up to the movie for it to kind of crash down in that regard. And I actually, not only do I still have my little Catwoman car, I still have my pencil case that has Catwoman on it, which I still use for my art supplies. And I have like a sticker book, and like I just ugh, for you to say this is not the best Batman movie. Oh, it's not a good Batman movie. It's just
It's the
Mike.
best
Oh,
Catwoman movie. I'm not going to
well, that's
dispute that.
certainly true. I didn't
But
about that
that's
they
kind of,
tried to
yeah.
do a sequel, but that's a whole other
Oh, yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
I read the
Yeah.
script for it once when it got leaked on the internet. That was bonkers. So,
Yeah, I haven't really gotten into the sequel other than, the setup of it, but I do talk a little bit in the BTS section about the cultural response and stuff. So,
mhm,
and yes, it did happen over here, but it's kind of a weird sort of, cultural difference. Because I remember in the US, there was as much, if not more, complaints about the kind of sexuality, because it's a very
mhm,
heavily sexually focused movie, if you know what I mean. And if you've seen it,
yeah.
you'll know what I'm talking about. But in this country, we were just, I don't know if we're just less repressed sometimes when it comes to that, so we weren't overly bothered about that. But we were just worried about the fact that it was gothic and disgusting and weird. So I recall
that
like the
too.
biggest,
It was both.
yeah, exactly. But the biggest complaint we had was just like, you're marketing this penguin toy to kids, and he like salivates like black ooze, and it's gross and it's horrible. And I was just like, and the BDSM lady, you fine with this? Oh yeah, whatever. But no, the sick, gross penguin dude, not on. So yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I mean, it's. We were saying kind of off air. I was saying it's definitely Catwoman's movie for me. She is the main character in this, and look how iconic that version of the character has become. I don't think it's been topped, and it is now culturally what you think of when you think of that character is Michelle Pfeiffer. Excuse me. So yeah. Incidentally, did you weirdly enough, did you guys see literally just I think last week or the week before that Michelle Pfeiffer visited where they currently have that costume and saw it again in like a case and was discussing what it was like to wear and how uncomfortable it was and stuff?
No, I didn't see that, but I know a while back she posted, I want to say it was on Instagram or something, that she was going through stuff and she found her whip
Oh
and
yeah.
she broke it out and was actually just doing, cracks with it. I was just like, I love you. I love you.
Yeah. Again, that's one of the things I mentioned, so I'll bring it up now, and then I won't have to later. But yeah, she actually literally trained with her stunt double and trained to use the whip, so she absolutely knows how to use it herself.
Yeah.
And can do it. And as you said, there is video online of her actually doing that. And yep, that's her. That's not a stunt double with the whole, in the department store, the whip action and everything. So get yourself a woman who can do both, I guess.
That was one thing my daughter told me right off the bat. She's like, and when she's whipping in the store with the mannequins, that was really her. I was like, I did just read that. I was surprised that she knew and remembered that already.
Yeah. Oh, it's really cool. And like I said, it's just one of the best kind of casting and acting and so on. But we'll get to all that. We spent a long time talking about impact, but I think that's kind of relevant, as I said, and it's got cultural context as well. So it was necessary. But were you drawn more to Batman or the villains, or let's be honest, Catwoman? Quickly, Vean, answer to those questions. I think you've kind of already given them.
Well, obviously, Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman was just a huge influence on me, and not just an influence. I think it was stuff and feelings and that already existed in me, and I just saw it on film and was like, yes, okay, somebody gets it. Somebody, even at 9. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to make it sexual, but the BDSM kind of stuff. I think some people pathologize that, and I think for some people it's just innate. And I think I was born a dominatrix. I will always be a dominatrix, but I didn't know that at the time. But it wasn't just the sexual power; it was also just being dominant in general as a woman, which is kind of frowned upon in our culture, and that's so. And this feeling, and I think this is true for Batman and the Penguin and Catwoman and most of Tim Burton's movies, where it deals with the outcast and being the outcast, and how do you get through life like that? And I think that's how I felt. Even as a little kid, I just never felt like I fit in anywhere, and to see this idea of a woman who is kind of not put together and literally sewing herself together in a sense, and putting all these pieces and going, how does this fit and how do I fit? So for me, Catwoman, obviously huge influence. Michael Keaton, particularly, I think he's strong in this, both as Bruce Wayne and Batman. I think he is somebody who can handle that duality, and duality is such a big part of this movie. But Danny DeVito, I mean, again, asking me to like say, well, who's the best? It's like to give that dedication to a role that he did, and to just like chips all in. He goes for grotesque, and he makes the character interesting and dynamic. And it's not just I'm a gross penguin. Like, he actually is a complicated villain, and I think they're all so fantastic, but definitely Catwoman for me. So
yeah. Okay, cool. So same question, Sandy, then. What impact did the film have on you? And was it which characters, I think, was it that influenced you more? Was it the Batman or the villains or the obvious?
Definitely more towards the villains. In fact, Batman is kind of vanilla in this installment of Batman compared to the villains. As far as Catwoman, what I liked about her was the kinship to cats and her liveness and her how it flipped a switch in her life, but also that it was more of like a supernatural vengeance, at least in my belief. I don't know if that was the intention.
I'll get into
Um,
that. Yeah, don't worry. that will come up.
okay. But to me, it was. To me, it was more like a supernatural spirit of vengeance that took her over and changed her. And so that fascinated me. And then alternatively, Penguin, because, you know, Danny DeVito was so well known at the time. And to see him transformed, you know, early in my movie watching career, I just was really fascinated by the prosthetics, how he was transformed, how realistic it looked, how he was both disgusting and also, you know, someone we felt a little bit bad for, and his bit of comic relief too. You know, just really both the villains impacted me more than Batman or it even being a Batman story.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I mean, obviously the villains were more the impact, I think, for anyone, including me. And Penguin was probably my introduction to the very Burton-esque archetype that I'll get into a little bit later. And I appreciated the character for what it was, and because, as I think Tim Burton has said, it's kind of such a different character and much more rich than the Penguin of the comics and the TV series. Not that it's a, you know, he's a terrible character, but there's not a lot to him character-wise. And so I think it was interesting that Burton quite heavily changed the character in a way, but it was a great one. And I mean, Catwoman was a revelation, like I said, not just for the obvious reasons of, you know, realizing you're attracted to certain physical things, literally, but also I think probably without getting too psychological profile about it, it probably was my realization that I was attracted to strong women and tragic women and women with a bit of depth and interest to them, you know. So, because I was never bothered about Vicky Vale in Batman. I was like, oh, yeah, Kim Basinger, whatever. So, and Catwoman, I was like, who is this? So yeah, anyway, so without getting too much further then, because we've taken a long time on that, I'm going to dive into the what I have for the behind the scenes sections. Before I start, I will say there is so much information about this film out there. I've said this on previous episodes, so sorry if I'm repeating myself, but there's no way I'm going to be able to cover everything, because even a quick look at the Wikipedia page it's essays full about all of the themes and the various behind the scenes things and stuff. So I've tried to kind of trim it into a workable, you know, podcast at my usual length without getting too far into stuff. But if anything, you know, that I haven't mentioned you feel as relevant as we've already been doing, ladies, if you want to jump in with it, feel free. But yeah, just as far as the behind the scenes goes, I do have questions to kind of pepper it in between as well. So I'm experimenting with that, so it's not just me rambling for the entire way. So first of all, Tim Burton wasn't originally keen to come back. After Batman, he felt boxed in by studio expectations. He actually described the idea of a sequel as dumbfounded. Clearly, he changed his mind by the time he was doing Beetlejuice 2 and everything, but never mind. He only agreed to return once Warner Brothers promised him complete creative control, and boy, did he take them at their word. Casting Catwoman was almost its own mini soap opera. Annette Bening was actually cast, but had to drop out because she became pregnant. Then there's the legendary story of Sean Young. I don't know if you guys know this, but she'd originally been cast. So Vean clearly knows. She'd been cast as Vicky Vale in Batman before a riding accident forced her to drop out, and she was determined to play Catwoman. So she showed up at Warner Brothers in a homemade costume, trying to corner Tim Burton for an impromptu audition, and apparently he hid under his desk. Which I just love. Yeah, she even took the outfit on Entertainment Tonight and Joan Rivers, etc. Ultimately, Warner Brothers went with Michelle Pfeiffer, and honestly, it's hard to imagine anyone else in the role now. So, Vean, I've got to ask, given your love for Pfeiffer's take, do you think anyone else could have pulled it off, or was it just lightning in a bottle?
Lightning in a bottle. When I hear about Annette Bening, I'm just like, who thought that was going to be a good idea? Like, all respect to Annette Bening. No, there was, there was, there was nobody else that could have captured this the way Michelle did. And there's a lot of great actresses out there, and I just think the this was the perfect storm of factors that came into play. Her willingness to go there, to learn, as we were saying, to learn the whip. She actually put that bird in her mouth in that one
Hmm.
scene. Um, and I remember reading an interview with Tim Burton that was saying, who else could do that thing with her eyes, with the fluttering when she's
Oh yeah,
coming back to
I
life.
never even think of that, but yeah, it's
And
incredible.
that was a big part of the reason he cast her, was the eye thing. And I think, much as I credit Danny DeVito with being very dedicated to the role, I do think Michelle Pfeiffer was equally dedicated. She just didn't have the grotesque to dig into. So,
Hmm.
no, I don't think, I can't think of an actress from that time period that I feel would have been able to give this character the depth and the magnetism that Michelle Pfeiffer brings.
That's cool. Did you know about the Sean Young story? Do you think she would have
I
been an
did.
interesting
That's why I
choice?
was laughing. No,
Yeah,
no.
no,
She might have
fair enough.
brought, I will say, she may have brought a certain mental instability to the character, but
Yeah,
there's more to it than that. So,
yeah, yeah. Fair. I think I would agree with that actually. Yeah, and yeah, you are right. I did have it, but I may as well mention it now. I did have it in the kind of acting that yes, Michelle Pfeiffer. That's not CGI. She did put that bird in her mouth herself, and has since said she absolutely would not do that again. She wasn't quite aware of the potential risk of disease or injury at the time, and it was dumb, but she did do it herself. So yeah, Sandy, would you agree with that with regards to the Michelle Pfeiffer casting?
Yes, also I would say lightning in a bottle. And I was going to mention her eyes, not just the fluttering, but when they were wide open in that cat suit, her facial features um, just really were. They just really knocked you over. I couldn't see anybody else being that affecting visually alone, but also, as Vian said, her commitment to the role. And just the fact that there hasn't been a Catwoman I haven't rolled my eyes at since. She's
Mm.
um, Eartha Kitt and her. I mean, I think are pretty
yeah.
much it.
Oh, and if I could jump on that just to expand on what Sandy's
Sure.
saying about her eyes and her facial features. It's not even just as Catwoman. There's a scene where she's Selena, and where she's being confronted by Max Shreck, and the way the light hits her glasses, and it makes these sort
Mm.
of arcs up over her eyes. And so for her to play that mousy Selena as well and still get that impact, I think is very impressive.
Yeah, and to that end, I wasn't going to say this, but I've just had the thought, so I'll jump in and say it. I think it's impressive that it's not just sort of Selena, Catwoman, straight down the middle. If you look at the difference in the way she plays Selena from that initial confrontation to when she comes back, and she's just so much more confident and kind of like, that's my name, Maximilian, don't wear it out, kind of thing. And I'm like,
Yeah.
this is incredible acting because it's the same character, yet definitely not quite, if you know what I mean. And it's just, that's without the costume on or anything. And again, I just remember absolutely, without realizing why, just loving the kind of linked duality storylines between Batman and Catwoman, and the way, it's just so clever of an idea. And again, no other film has really quite captured how similar they are in that regard, and why that kind of tragic romance, I think, is so powerful. And yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, you're
And
right.
since
How
we're,
her
yeah,
presence completely changes. You're right.
yeah,
Well, you also
completely.
have to look at the aspect of duality, as you were saying, with Batman, Bruce Wayne, and Selena and Catwoman. It's how does an individual deal with trauma too? Like, how does
Yeah,
that trauma manifest? Does it become destructive, or does it become something that's more positive in an
yeah,
aspect?
absolutely. And that's also part of the Penguin storyline, which I don't think I appreciated. That the idea is that I think Burton, or perhaps one of the screenwriters, has said that Penguin's storyline is to mirror Batman's. Like, he was abandoned by his parents and didn't grow up with them, and Batman lost his parents. And that's why you have that really subtle scene where Bruce is kind of looking at him when he first kind of comes out in public and says, his parents, I hope he finds them. Because Bruce
Mhm.
is kind of reliving that trauma. And I was like, that's, again, absolute genius. And it only comes from this version of Penguin. It's not something you would have in that character, but I do appreciate the way Burton links that as well. And yeah. And I mean, since we're talking about duality, it's also, this is getting into the writing, but it's also part of kind of the whole Max Shreck thing. Like, he has a completely different public image to what he's like in private. You know,
Hmm.
there's not actually a physical costume, but he's kind of the charming Gotham's everyman, our real hero. Oh, I can't be Santa Claus, but I want to just help people out. And then in private, he's kind of like stockpile all of the kind of power and we will be true supervillains are the businessmen. You know, arriving to that conclusion 30, 40 years too early, but still, you know. But yeah, that's all valid and relevant stuff. Jumping back into the BTS, I've kind of already mentioned this, but yes, the marketing campaign was massive. Toys, Happy Meals, all kinds of merch to try to repeat Batman's financial success, like Vean said. The film did make money. It was the 6th highest grossing film of 1992, but parents weren't exactly thrilled about all the violence and the sexual energy tied to the kids' lunchboxes. That backlash actually scared some corporate partners away, and it's a big reason why Batman Forever took such a, well, it says lighter, family-friendly approach. I personally rail back against that, but that's an argument for if I ever review Batman Forever. I don't think it's quite as, you know, the complete 360 turn into light and happy and chippy that people make it out to be. Batman
It's
and Robin
camp.
was. But...
It's camp. That's all.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, I wouldn't say it's happy and positive, but it is campy versus gothic.
I don't know. I think it still has a lot of Burton's kind of gothic design and production, I think, in it. And then, as I say, I think people think of Batman Forever the way people should think of Batman and Robin, which is just like it became straight out parody and was ridiculous. But, you know, again, that's an argument for if I ever review Batman Forever, which I still think is underrated, by the way.
I agree, actually.
Thank you. What's going on? Pigs are flying. We're in agreement. Anyway. So, yeah, still over time, Batman Returns has become something of a cult favorite, now seen as one of the boldest and most auteur-driven superhero films ever made. It really did pave the way for darker, more stylized comic book movies. And, of course, with its snow, loneliness, and twisted holiday imagery, it's earned its status as a true alternative Christmas classic, which is part of why we're looking at it now. Its story was revisited in the comic series Batman 89 from 2021, which I would recommend, and Keaton later reprised his version of Batman in The Flash 2023, which I decidedly would not. Yeah. If anyone listening hasn't revisited the film in a while, the 4K editions are gorgeous, especially the 2022 collector's one with the art cards and poster. And yes, please do take a drink, regular listeners. That is exactly the version I have and the version that I watched. So yeah. Before we dive into the writing and the story, is there any other behind the scenes stuff that surprised you too, or something that stood out? You know,
well, I have a fun fact. I don't know that
it
surprised me or anything, but I got this from that book when I was a kid, and I always was just tickled by this. You guys know the scene where the Penguin is giving the speech that turns on him, and the audience is throwing things at him.
I did
Danny
not say
Elfman
that.
was on. What?
I did not say that.
Oh. Well, Danny Elfman was on set the day of that scene, and so he was one of the people throwing stuff at Danny DeVito.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
That has my favorite underrated joke, which is, it's not my favorite line, but it really should be because it is brilliant, but it is so ridiculous. And again, as people criticize the film for being dark and stuff, this is a film in which the Penguin actually says, why do people always bring tomatoes and eggs to a speech as he's getting pelted with stuff? I mean, come on, man. Yeah, that's just a brilliant line, and I think I missed that for a long time until I was like, what? That's actually true.
Oh, there are a lot of zingers in this movie. I think the one-liners in this film are just fantastic.
I have got a note of that. Yeah, there's so much dark humor and stuff in it that surprises me. I mean, I can't really remember. I'll probably get to the rest and read it back later, but I do know off the top of my head, when they're playing that speech you mentioned, the Penguin, like, I'm playing this stinking city like a harp from air, like that. Batman freaking starts DJing the disc with it on, or Bruce, I should say, in the back. Like, I was like, what is that? That
the use of CDs in this film was quite comical.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's 1992 for sure. But yeah, and I can't remember much else. I do know that the one that always sticks in mind is, it could be worse. My nose could be gushing with blood, and I just bites the guy's nose off. You know, again, it's funny, but it's dark humor, you know. So yeah. Anyway, I'll dive into the writing and plot because I have a little bit, and then, as I said, some questions, and then we can talk about anything we haven't kind of brought up yet. Sam Hamm was the original Batman 89 writer. He wrote a treatment for this script, which initially focused on Harvey Dent and his transformation into the villain Two-Face. But Warner Brothers wanted Penguin as the main villain, probably because they saw him as the most recognizable Batman villain after Joker, which I can kind of see, culturally speaking. Catwoman was added later because both Burton and Hamm were fascinated by her character. A new screenwriter jumped in. Burton didn't love Ham's scripts. He said they didn't spark anything new, and remember, he'd only agreed to return if he could do something different. So he brought in Daniel Waters, who had actually written the movie Heathers, which I didn't know, and that had exactly the same kind of darkly comic bite that Burton wanted. Apparently, he also favoured the fact that Waters had no prior emotional connection to Batman whatsoever, which is potentially, I guess, controversial. His story focused on the villains and the darker tone, and he said he was the one that was okay with Batman killing when it was story justified, and to think otherwise is naive. But he still objected to the scene of Batman blowing up the circus dude with the bomb, as that was not one of his script additions, and he still thought that was a bit too far. So yeah, it's always kind of bugged me that when Batman ends the movie going like, no, we have to take him to the police, we have to be accountable. And I'm just like, you just blew up a dude. Come on, man. This is, again, fascinating for me because I didn't know it for the longest time, and ever since I heard, I've been amazed by it. At one point, the script for this film also did include Robin. He was a garage mechanic who helps Batman after Penguin sabotages the Batmobile, based a little bit more, I think, on the Tim Drake incarnation from the comics of the time. Burton and Waters apparently described Robin as worthless for this story. Ouch. Yeah, although Robin was removed from the final screenplay, the character's development had progressed far enough that Marlon Wayans had already been cast. Burton had specifically wanted an African-American Robin, and costumes, sets, and action figures were created, and you can get them. I mean, they're limited edition collector's items, but they're out there. In a 1998 interview, Wayans said that he continued to receive residual checks under the 2-film contract he had already signed. So, nice work if you can get it that way. And yeah,
that's so interesting, since we had just recently talked about Tim Burton films being, a little too white, and I'm very interested to hear that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I knew that.
I'm pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
100%
agree with Sandy on that.
Yeah, it was definitely him that was, and again, I think I would have liked to have seen an African-American Robin. There's no reason why not, and it would have been an interesting thing. Although we did eventually get it in, if you've seen the TV show Titans, they use a black, again, Tim Drake in that show, and he's very good. He's a good actor. Not a great show overall, but he's good. Fun fact, that final Catwoman shot looking up at the bat signal was added just 2 weeks before release. Again, I didn't know that. Test audiences loved Pfeiffer so much that Warner Brothers demanded proof she survived, but Pfeiffer herself wasn't available, so that's actually a stand-in. So, and to your earlier point, Sandy, while there's a lot of talk about her having 9 lives, Burton and Waters have said that they never meant the supernatural elements to be taken literally, and Catwoman was actually meant to definitively die alongside Max Shreck. So, yeah, kind of weird.
I like my version.
Your version is basically just the Crow, but female. But yeah,
you're right.
Speaking of, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that was it. I was right.
I just want to tell Mike he was right.
But speaking of Max Shreck, are we going to talk about the genesis of his name, the character name?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But I mean, if you want to do the honors, by all means.
Well, Max Shreck was the name of the actor who played Count Orloff in the original 1920s classic Nosferatu.
Orlok, but you were close.
That's what I said.
You said Orloff.
Oh,
which is a series of unfortunate events.
I meant to say Orlok.
Yeah. No, I love the original Nosferatu, and I think the fact that kind of borrowed name, I think, says a lot about a lot of the influence on this film, German expressionism and stuff, if you're a huge film geek like me.
Well, if you look at Tim Burton's early work, like his experimental films and stuff, the German expressionism influence is massive.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, yeah, I'll get into some of the production design aspects that reflect that physically as well. But yeah, definitely there's a huge tinge of, if you're familiar with the likes of Nosferatu or Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, I've mentioned it loads. But yeah, German expressionism of the 20s and 30s, even up to like Metropolis to a degree. Fantastic movies and just fantastic art. But that makes me sound really pretentious. So I will very much move on. Right. Given, Vean, I have this question aimed towards you. So given how many people read something into the supernatural 9 lives thing, do you prefer the almost mythic figure, or do you prefer Catwoman as a damaged human who thinks she's reborn? Sandy's already basically answered this, so I'm just coming to you for your thing. Damaged
human for me. I don't really buy into the magic aspect that... I don't find it to be very literal in this movie. Unlike something like Pan's Labyrinth, where there's the debate of like, oh, is this really happening, or is this all in her imagination as she's dying? But with this one, I think it isn't that open to interpretation. I didn't realize that people actually thought that. The only thing that would give me pause is actually the revival scene with the cats chewing on her and everything coming out of it.
That's so weird. I was just
But
going to say that. Yeah.
but yeah, the nine lives thing, I don't take that literally at all.
No, it's weird because I'm kind of somewhere in between, because I definitely took the revival scene as she was dead and the cats somehow resurrected her by mixing their blood or something weird, that you think of when you're 10 years old and you're like, oh, okay, she's been revived by the cats, I guess. And that's why she's Catwomanish and looks kind of
And why
pale.
she
And
wants milk now.
exactly.
Yeah.
Despite that, I never thought of the nine lives thing as literal. I always just thought it was her being kind of, a bit florid with the metaphor of it all. And
And for the record, as Sandy said about the milk is not good for cats. Don't give your cats milk.
Oh, okay. I'm pleased you said that, because I would not have known not to do that. And yeah, Selena does that quite a lot in this film. So don't do that. Don't be Selena. In so
Yes.
many ways, don't be. But in a few ways, if you feel like it, please do. And send me the pictures. Anyway.
A lot of people comment, and I wholeheartedly agree, that of all the Bruce Wayne and love interest pairings, that these two specifically had the best chemistry of all the Batman films, and I have to agree.
Well,
100%.
there may be a reason for that, which again I have later on in my script, but I may as well mention it now. Apparently, Michelle Pfeiffer was brought up as a name that was considered to be cast as Vicky Vale in Batman as well, but Michael Keaton vetoed it because they had already dated, and he was worried it would get in the way of him reconciling with his wife. So that sexual tension might well be real.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
But I will say, regarding, Batman having less of an impact in the movie, I do like not just the romance with Selena, but that Bruce Wayne gets a little more airtime, so we understand him a little more and why he's doing what he's doing, and without just the influence of my parents. There's more to Bruce Wayne than that one note, and I think Keaton really brings that.
I don't. This is going to sound mean, but I don't fully agree with that. So we're back to standard, procedure. Because I don't know if it does give you as much about what Bruce Wayne's doing. And again, I read in the course of researching this that there was more for Batman to say and do, but that Michael Keaton and Burton were just like, nah, Batman should talk as little as possible in this film and just be more of a kind of stoic presence. And I'm like, well, that's not great, is it? What I love about the story of this film, I've kind of already touched on, is how well the plots weave together and how tightly that's plotted. Like, it never feels forced, the way that Catwoman's, Penguin's, Shrek's, and Bruce's storylines all intersect and all kind of naturally play into each other. There's a little bit towards the end of the film where it gets a bit silly and Penguin just starts to become mustache-twirling supervillain because the film needs to end, perhaps. But other than that, I think, it's just so... And again, you can kind of sense that from the very first scene where Batman, Penguin, and Catwoman meet for the first time after she's blown up the department store. And I was like, all three of these stories have happened separately, in different places in the screen and in the storyline, and then converged into this one thing. And it doesn't feel like, oh, yeah, now they're all in one place. How convenient, kind of thing.
Well, the writing is very organic, so
Yeah.
the story reflects that. And I think what's interesting about the writing is that you have a lot of wonderful zingers. You have a lot of wonderful, I could pick out a line here and a line there and a line there, and they just work so beautifully. But the overarching story ties together nicely. And what's interesting, as I was getting to, is that when we watch an action, quote unquote, action movie now, it's the actual camera work and the writing is so fast. It's so fast. It's hard to even be like, what's happening? Who threw a punch at what? And and with this, the physical pacing, if you watch it now, it feels super slow because we're so used to something fast. But because the writing itself is so fast paced, it works really well as a tie-in with the slower visuals, I think.
I don't think it seems slow to me, but again, that might be because I'm from a generation that grew up with a bit more attention span, perhaps.
Right. No, well, I just mean comparative to what we're used to now. It's like watching, the original series of Star Trek versus, Discovery. It's like, oh, whoa, things happen a lot slower, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I
No, I mean,
prefer
it gives the film a chance to actually focus on character, with the exception of Batman. Again, that's because it has 3 villains characters to dive into. So yeah, no, I appreciate that. And the only other issue that I have, and I think this is only because I'm such a huge film nerd, and it probably didn't bother anybody else, but I just feel like it was so telegraphed that she picked up Chekhov's taser from that one goon that attacked her. It focused way too much on it, and I was like, well, this is going to become important later. And sure enough, it was what she killed Shreck with at the end of the film.
Oh, but I love it when she tases the guy that's knocked out. And she gets, that's when you first see that really dark look on her
Yeah,
face.
yeah.
And it's so delightful. And then she tases him and she kind of chuckles about it. Ah,
I love how kooky
fabulous.
she is as well, the way that she's talking about, like, yo, yeah, no, all the men in my life do this. I mean, there's you, but you need therapy. And then she shocks the guy and everything. And I was like,
And ironically, the guy she's talking to on her answering machine is in therapy. So
yeah.
is that a criticism? I don't know.
Some
Who
appendage.
knows?
Yeah.
Yes. Speaking of which, that's actually a great tie-in, Sandy, because I was just going to get to, again, the dark humor that we mentioned earlier. I have got a list of some of the things I had forgotten. So Selina's fake-out fall, when Shreck goes as if he's going to push her, and they go, and then does push her immediately afterwards. Again, very dark humor, but kind of funny.
And Christopher Walken nails that. Oh my God.
Nails so much in this film. The scene where the kind of circus fire breather guy's going around setting everybody on fire, and Batman just turns the Batmobile around, fires the engines, and burns him up. Again, it's dark, but it's kind of funny. The scene of him, programming the Batarang to hit everybody, and then the puppy just jumping up and catching it. It's so weird. The line when Penguin first comes out, and it's just, again, this is just a comedy moment in a supposedly very dark film, but when people are talking about it, and some woman goes, oh, he's like a frog that became a prince, and then the guy with her just goes, nah, he's more like a penguin. It's just, yeah, twisted, funny, very Tim Burton. Who could pull off Batman saying a line like, eat floor, high fiber?
Yeah. And so, then there's still moments of poignancy and reflection, like when Catwoman first saves that first lady who's being accosted in a dark alley, and she's very harsh with her and telling her, you make it so easy, and you can see that she's almost talking to her past self and more angry with her past self and how she was. It was almost like that was the reason for that harshness. Yeah. And just it was just has all of that works so well together.
Yeah.
Well, and there's something I brought this up in the Jurassic Park review as well, but when you have these heavy themes, and in Jurassic Park it was more the danger and the violence, and in this case it's these really, like I said, heavy themes of duality and trauma. You do need those moments of levity, even if it is a little bit of what we might call dark humor, to kind of break things up.
Absolutely, yeah.
Definitely. And again, you've given me a perfect segue, because the next thing I was going to do was to, dig into what all the darkness and duality means by talking about some of the themes in the film. Again, I'm only going to be touching on it because there have been reams upon reams written of this. There are so many themes and so much richness. And again, I encourage you, if you do get a chance to go and look at the Wikipedia page, please do, but set aside a good 3 hours because it's going to take a while to get through it. They go quite heavily into the themes. So starting with what we've already mentioned, duality and fragmented identity. We've kind of already said all this, but Bruce and Selina mirroring each other, Penguin and Batman's similarities. And again, I've kind of noted down lines that emphasize this in case anybody was to, doubt it or kind of question the logic. So the line where Penguin says, you're just jealous because I'm a genuine freak and you have to wear a mask. And Bruce's reply, you might be right. And when when Bruce first starts questioning Penguin, and Alfred just says, must you be the only lonely man beast in town? And speaking to that duality, I remember this very specifically, the line where at the very end when Penguin's basically denounced it all and embraced the monstrous, and he just goes, I am not a human being, I am an animal, which I remember because my mother was a huge fan of the Elephant Man movie and was like, that is very pointedly, literally the reverse of the kind of famous line from the Elephant Man of I'm not an animal, I'm a human being kind of thing.
Like, Tim Burton's been known to do that. He also did a reverse in Planet of the Apes, where it was the apes saying get your hands off me, you stinking human, or whatever it was.
And again, it's so hitting the nail on the head, but the line about Penguin saying to Shreck, we're both perceived as monsters, but somehow you're a well-respected monster. And again, in this day and age, that is such a hard-hitting kind of line. to the kind of person that Shreck is. In terms of Bruce and Selina, you've got kind of a dark side, don't you? Says Bruce to Selina, no darker than yours, Bruce. Again, it's
I actually
right
included
there in
that
the
line in
dialogue.
a paper I wrote once
Really?
about
Again, I can see
duality.
why,
Yes,
because it's,
I was talking about the nature of duality in this paper I wrote, and I actually included that.
Yeah. And again, so things that I noted down that I think were vital to that. So when Selina tells Alfred, he makes me feel the way I hope I really am, because she's struggling to think which of these two kind of personas she is.
Boy,
To
does
that end,
that line
again,
hit.
yeah, I know, right? Again, this might be just me, but to me, the Bruce-Selina relationship, part of the reason I think I like it is that it's very noir-esque. Like, it's got film noir elements, not just because Catwoman is quite femme fatale and, it's a tortured romance, but because, yeah, it is... It kind of has a lot of those film noir type tropes in that relationship, and I don't know, is that just me, or would you guys agree with that? Or
No, I mean, it absolutely does. And especially in that line you're referencing, I think that speaks to a lot of damaged, oh God, I hate to say damaged women, but trauma,
but
women
yeah,
who've experienced trauma and who that trauma manifests in a destructive way. Now, this is an extreme example. Obviously, this
of
is
course, yeah,
a phantasmagorical example, but how trauma, particularly in women, can manifest sexually in a destructive way, or emotionally and in a way that is not conducive to living your best life. And then she meets somebody and she's that, wow, he makes me feel the way I hope I really am, is this acknowledgement of the self-destructive tendency, and how these feelings of not being enough or not being good enough, and all these things that I think are not specifically unique to women, but they present differently in a societal context. So I'm
yeah.
sorry. I hope that made sense what I was trying to say
No,
there.
it absolutely does, and I was going to kind of, if I may, kind of springboard off of that and say that I've got this under direction, but I think it's kind of very telling that Catwoman's kind of rebirth after the obvious cats licking her and whatever kind of thing. Her rebirth is, even though the violence is not necessarily presented as sexual violence, it kind of feels like she is railing almost against that, like the moment when the answering machine's like, oh, the boss will ask you to stay late at work, and she screams with such trauma and destroys it. And she literally throws away all childish things and destroys the teddies and spray paints black over everything pink and changes the kind of fluffy feminine stuff for the kind of black latex and everything. And I was like, it's a literal kind of physical reinvention in that same way, as you say, of like, I have been through this trauma and I don't know how to deal with it. And again, that's fascinating for what is, essentially a popcorn blockbuster type thing, to dive into stuff like that. And it's very Burton-esque, I think. Would you agree, or is that just me perhaps reading too much into it again?
I
agree.
agree. And even
Okay,
when
cool.
she's we've talked about this briefly before, but even when she's given a choice of dialing it back a bit and doing what Batman or whomever might consider to be the right thing, she chooses chaos each time. So
Yeah. And while we're sort of skirting around the subject of both the performance type that we've mentioned and the direction and the kind of visuals, I just absolutely, for some reason, I've always had ingrained in my mind, not Catwoman in full costume, but that scene at the very end when she has the mask off and she just looks so disheveled and the hair's all over
Oh
the place and the
yeah.
makeup's kind of running. And I was like, I think I posted in our Discord, my gender and sexuality are officially Michelle Pfeiffer at the end of Batman Returns. Because, I mean, come on, it's just, wow.
That is the physical manifestation of all that conflict that's going on in her head.
Yeah. It's
And it's
become
a
so iconic though
perfect
that,
visual representation.
oh, it absolutely
I
is.
think
But it's become more iconic almost than the costume, because when I see people cosplaying as this version of Catwoman, at least 50% of the time it's mask off, disheveled looking from the end of the movie. So, yeah, sorry, Sandy, you were saying.
I was just going to say it's also what sets them apart, whereas Selina's duality is with her present self and her past self, and Bruce Wayne's duality is with his two present selves.
Yeah.
Just how Batman needs the costume to be Batman, but Selina Kyle does not. She's pretty much always Catwoman. She's Catwoman in disguise as Selina Kyle.
Yeah, I was
conversely.
just going to
But
say it's a tired argument at this point, but again, it does sadly feed into the old argument of is Bruce Wayne the costume and Batman who he really is? And as you said, that feeds more and more into Selina of like, is she Catwoman? And she's putting on this. I mean, as they say it during that scene at the costume ball thing, they don't go in costume because they're both tired of wearing masks. But the argument is perhaps they are because they're going as Bruce and Selina, and that is the masks they're kind of putting on to deny themselves, if you know what I mean. So, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Power is another big theme of this movie, whether we're talking about physical power, sexual power, whatever. I mean, even Max Shreck says, Bruce, shame on you. You can never have too much power. My life has
power
a meaning.
exactly. Yeah,
That is its meaning. So
yeah,
there's a lot of that at play, obviously.
and
And
Penguin is
yep,
like, power would be nice, but I just want to be accepted.
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, well, again, somebody who's abandoned by his parents just wants to be loved by society, and but ultimately, like you said, when he gets rejected, it becomes such a violent, like, well, screw humanity, I'll kill you all. I'm more of a penguin than a person, I guess.
Well, no,
So
I don't know, Mike. I would argue that because I think it wasn't just so people who have faced somebody who is rejected by their parents that grows up and they want love and acceptance, but simultaneously want to punish people too. So
mm,
it's not
yeah,
definitively I want love and acceptance. He cannot and this is the penguin's problem, is that he cannot reconcile the desire to punish people for what he's gone through, to punish his parent. He
yeah,
can't punish his parents, so he wants to punish everybody, but he just wants to be loved and accepted as well. So because you can't reconcile that, it
yeah.
turns into a really destructive situation.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Actually, thanks for bringing that up. That's a good note, I would say. Yeah, absolutely agree. But yeah, in terms of I've kind of mentioned it already. But again, if you didn't believe me that Catwoman's a heavily sexualized character, she does also, say, "I feel dirty. I could give myself a bath right here," and start licking herself. Say,
Hmm.
when Batman says no hard feelings, actually semi-hard, I'd say, and the scene
Mm.
that always gets me because it feels, even though nothing really happens in the scene, it feels like pure filth to me, where she's kind of like feeling up his costume and everything and just like, where's the real Batman? No, not there, not there. And you don't see where she's grasping and she just goes, oh, there you are. Just like,
Mm.
how the f- did they get away with that in this film? That is just filth. But anyway, moving on to the point you were making earlier, there is also themes about like the criticism of power, politics, and ideology, which again I think is horribly prevalent in this day and age and relevant. The mayoral plot, the idea of Shreck being the kind of man behind the king, as it were, his manipulations, the critique about society and capitalism, that Shreck has all the power because he's got money and he still wants more because, as you said, one could never have too much power, which again, that could literally have come out of the mouth of at least one, two, or three people I could mention in actual society
let's
nowadays. And
let's not mention
yeah,
them.
let's just not. And
Yeah.
so the final kind of theme that I've mentioned is the Christmas imagery and the biblical allegories. There is a kind
Oh,
of
but before we change over, like
go for it. Go.
speaking of the power and Max Shreck being a kingmaker, the way he can turn it on and off, like as soon
Oh
as
yeah.
the crowd turns on Penguin, he looks at him, shrugs, walks off, is amazing. It's just you're
Oh
no
yeah.
longer of use to me. Let me get on with things.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
find
Yeah,
that
yeah.
so fascinating and so unfortunately real.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's believable though. Even though it's kind
Yeah.
of super villainy, it's kind of like, oh, that's ridiculously over the top, but it's friggin' realistic to
Yeah.
the way things work. And even to the point that, like you said, when Bruce is kind of rejecting Max's proposal and says, oh, you may have a platform to be mayor, but you don't have a candidate, and that's literally all he sees in Penguin. He acts like, oh, I'm your friend and I want to introduce you to the world and get you the love you need, but he's using him from the start. And it's kind of tragic in that regard as well. Like this thing that's already a tragic figure, this Penguin character, doesn't realize he's just being completely played because Shreck wants the actual power for himself. And that, as I said earlier, Christmas imagery and biblical allegory, whether you kind of like it or feed into it or not, it's very much there. Although Burton and the screenwriter have denied it, you can't really deny the fact that Penguin's kind of origin is very Moses-esque, being cast down the river in a basket kind of thing. The fact that Penguin's initial plan is to capture the firstborn sons of Gotham is incredibly King Herod. It's hard to avoid that. And yeah, I think it gives you a cultural critique as well about the nature of how, and again, maybe this is me reading too much into it, maybe people will groan, but I think it is saying something about how the commercialization and the capitalism have kind of taken over Christmas, and there's a bit of a darkness underneath it that we don't acknowledge that it's been kind of overtaken by. And I say that because it's all, there's a lot of crass commercialization and stuff in the film, and it talks about the corporate side of things via Shreck, but also like in one physical scene, if you want it really summed up for me visually, it's where they light up the Christmas tree and it's all lit up and looking fantastic. And then the camera just pans down to Penguin watching this from the sewers. And it is literally, to me, it's very much, this is the darkness underneath the light, that we need to acknowledge, kind of thing. Again,
I do
you might
love that
disagree,
scene.
but yeah, it's a very well-directed scene. I mean, there's so many of those in the film. So any last thoughts from you guys then on any of the writing or the plots or themes we've talked about?
No, but I do love it as a dark Christmas movie, which Tim Burton seems to excel at in general.
Yeah. Moving on to the directing then, as I said, I could talk for hours and hours about the writing and the themes, but if you want a deeper dive, I encourage you to do it yourself. There's a lot in there. So talking about the direction, Tim Burton once said that Batman, the original, was his least favorite of his films. He called it occasionally boring. Warner Brothers, meanwhile, wanted Batman Returns to be more of a Tim Burton movie, weirder, but also more hip and fun. And boy, did they get more than they bargained for, I think. Burton brought in a host of long-term collaborators to replace key members of the original crew. Cinematographer Stefan Zapsky, production designer Bo Welch, creature effects supervisor Stan Winston, makeup artist Vean, and art directors Tom Duffield and Rick Henricks. The result is that, for me, every frame screams Burton, from the macabre set design to the exaggerated expressionist architecture that we've kind of touched on. But I mean, look at little details like the monocle and the cigarette holder on Penguin's father as a nice little kind of not over the top visual callback to the character as you know him. It's a nice classic character reference. The giant cat face etched into the glass doors of Shrek's building, or the huge cat sculpture on the top of it before we ever meet Catwoman. It's visual cues. And the fact that that's the building almost where she's reborn, she hits through pictures of cats as she's going, or as I said, the Christmas tree shot from the sewers, or the scene that I absolutely love. And it's apropos of nothing. It's not necessarily tying into deeper themes, but just the scene of the bat signal and when Bruce stands up and he's illuminated by it is, for me, one of the most gorgeous shots in film. It just looks stunning, even though it's
absolutely beautiful. I agree.
Yeah, it's not telling a deeper story, but aesthetically, it just looks incredible. So, Sandy, do you have a favorite visual moment that just screams, this is a Tim Burton film?
It was first that scene that you just spoke about of how the bat signal and Bruce Wayne being backlit. I guess backlit would be the correct. Yeah. But probably my favorite is actually going to be Penguin in the graveyard right after his coming out party. When he's just there, the lighting in the graveyard, how the headstones are very gothic and big.
Yes.
And him in his top hat and sinking to his knees there in that moonlit graveyard, just so incredibly beautiful.
That's very Burton. I would agree with you. Vean, same question?
I think shot for shot, this is sort of, while I say Big Fish is his masterpiece, I think this is the definitive Tim Burton movie visually. And now my personal favorite, I mean, again, you could pick any frame from this movie, and in terms of the way it's composed is stunning. But I mentioned earlier where Max catches Selena kind of going through the files, and it's got that dark light that's shot with a light going up from below, so it hits her glasses and causes these arcs, and she's looking up at him, and I think that is this really great foreshadowing to the mask that she's going to wear later.
Wow.
But also beautifully framed.
Yeah, I didn't notice that. That's mind-blowing. Good point, though. Very much. Yeah, much like you, I could pick any frame, and I don't think this is necessarily my favorite thing, but I just noticed it during this viewing, and I wanted to shout it out because it's symptomatic, I think, of the fact that we don't really allow films just a little bit of a moment of indulgence and slowness. So I'm thinking of the scene where we first sort of slowly zoom into the zoo, and Burton literally just spends time with the camera, just changing different angles, going a little bit skew every now and then, focusing on the various different bits of the set design, and spending a good minute and a half just slowly tracking us through that into the thing, rather than just cut, now we're in this next location. And again, I think it's something we miss, I think, in faster paced movies. And it was just such a moment of, this is incredible. This is just such,
And that
art,
particular moment you're speaking of, the marriage of Danny Elfman's theme
Yep.
there, in that particular shot really stands out.
Yes, and I love Elfman's themes for both Batman and Batman Returns. Actually, I think they are inseparable from the movie and iconic, but I'll get to that, I guess, a little bit later. So yeah, in terms of other kind of things, I've mentioned already the kind of, the literal visual metaphor of Catwoman changing from kind of girly and pink to black and sexualized and childish to more adult. And I think it's telling that at the end of the film, Catwoman and Batman basically are gradually getting more and more demasked. They kind of are shedding the quote unquote mask of the costume and revealing their real selves.
Or are they integrating it into the whole?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because that's when he says we're split down the middle, we're the same. And I have to mention, because I'm bringing up that scene, the kind of criticism that people have made of the film, and it bugs me no end as well. In that scene when Batman's about to take off his mask, and
I know what you're going to say.
The bat eyeliner mysteriously disappears because he's about to take the mask off. It really pisses me off. It's such an obvious from one scene to the next.
We also going to talk about how easy that mask rips. Is it really?
Yeah.
How effective is it if he could just zoop? It's off. It's ripped.
And how many of those must he have?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I have to mention, of course, like I said, the absolute genius, and I don't know whose idea it was. I presume it was Burton's, because it's kind of a visual thing. But the idea of having the sign that says hello there in that gaudy neon representing Selina as she was, and then just transforming it by the destruction of two letters from hello there to hell here.
And the shot, the way it's shot, where she's coming towards the camera, it doesn't look to the side or anything, just busts her knuckles right into that glass.
Yep.
Without even looking at it. So
yeah, you think there's no intention there until you see it later.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And but no, it's just such great visual shorthand. It's genius, and I don't think it gets credit because people just perhaps laugh at the kind of dark humor of it. But it's no, this is somebody worked this out. You know what I mean? This is, and it is a perfect metaphor for this character's journey in just one action. But anyway, moving on.
Obviously, I like it.
Yeah, but so moving on to the acting, I'm just going to get out as much as I can, and then we can talk about our kind of personal highlights and things. So first of all, obviously Michael Keaton, as we know, plays Bruce Wayne / Batman. The dialogue for Batman was described as bitter and cynical, including lines suggesting Gotham City was unworthy of protection. I'm talking about the original script here. This was pared back because Keaton felt Batman should speak as little as possible in costume, and Burton preferred to portray the character as motivated by trauma instead of nihilism, which I kind of can agree with the latter part, but not so much the first part. Danny DeVito, as we mentioned, is Oswald Cobblepot / Penguin. Burton initially struggled to understand the appeal of the character, calling him just this guy with a cigarette and a top hat, which I kind of agree with. Waters and Burton agreed to make him more animalistic and to present him as a tragic figure abandoned by his parents, mirroring Batman, as we said. Political and social satire was incorporated, influenced by 2 episodes of the 60s TV series called His Honor the Penguin and Dishonor the Penguin, which I found fascinating that, it's actually literally plots from that 60s TV show that influenced the kind of mayoral plot in this. So yeah, and to communicate his vision, I love this. Burton showed Danny DeVito a painting he'd created of a small character sitting on a red and white striped ball, captioned, "My name is Jimmy, but my friends call me the hideous penguin boy." That is
I have a copy of that.
Tim. Oh, awesome. I'm so pleased because I want to put it in the friggin' edit. Because that's screams Tim Burton.
I'll dig it out and find it for you.
Yeah, we've mentioned Michelle Pfeiffer as Selina Kyle / Catwoman. In the course of developing the script, Catwoman shifted from a fetishy sexual fantasy femme fatale to a working class disenchanted secretary written as an allegory of contemporary feminism. Pfeiffer trained for several months in kickboxing with a stunt double and mastered the whip, like we said. And I've mentioned everything else about her not wanting to repeat the, putting a bird in your mouth. Moving on to Christopher Walken as Max Shreck. Initially written to replace Two-Face in the script draft, Shreck was written satirically, an evil industrialist who orchestrates the Penguin's campaign to show that true villains don't always wear costumes. Shreck's appearance was modelled on Vincent Price in an unspecified older film, while Walken based his performance on moguls such as Sol Hurok and Samuel Goldwyn. Obviously, we've got Michael Gough as Alfred Pennyworth. Doesn't have a lot to do in this film, but I think he's
I'm
good.
so glad you mentioned him. I have to jump in because that was going to be the first thing I said was to shout out Michael Gough, who is massively underappreciated and absolutely the best iteration of Alfred.
Oh, by far, I love him. And also the Celestial Toymaker from 60s Doctor Who. I just had to get that in there. Yeah, Paul Rubens and Diane Salinger cameo as Tucker and Esther Cobblepot, Oswald's wealthy elite parents. They were both obviously in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, especially, Paul Rubens is Pee-wee. Yeah. And Burgess Meredith, who played the Penguin in the 60s TV series, was originally supposed to cameo as Penguin's father, but he became ill during filming, which is what led Burton to call up a favor from Paul Rubens. The Red Triangle gang includes a couple of notable actors that I want to mention, great character actors, one of which we've lost and one of which we very much haven't. So that's the monkey-toting organ grinder is played by the actor Vincent Schiavelli, one of those great that guy characters, kind of a droopy-faced great actor who's been in so much. I can't remember anything off the top of my head apart from Ghost and Tomorrow Never Dies, but there's way more than that. And yeah, one thing I didn't realize for the longest time, the thin clown in this film, the one that kind of does all the somersaulting and steals the baby.
Doug
Jones.
I told him this summer, I said, my first Doug Jones movie was Batman Returns. And he goes to me, oh, well, we go way back. He is a trip, that man. Another recurring character actor in this film is the little poodle. That dog has been in several movies. Most notably, she played Precious in Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, cool. The only other acting note I've got is that Andrew Briniarski, who plays Max Shreck's son Chip, he's doing the most perfect impression of Christopher Walken.
He really is.
He does it right to his face. Oh my God.
I know, right? And yeah. So
and then the only other one is our sweet Jan Hooks, who played Jen.
Jan Hooks. Yeah, R.I.P. Saturday Night Live veteran and Third Rock from the Sun star. If you're me, I know people from weird stuff.
She was also in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, by the way.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I didn't know that. Cool.
Yeah, she was at the Alamo. She was the tour guide.
Ah, okay, cool.
I can jump in for a moment because I know I have harped on about Catwoman a lot and what an impression she made. And I know the top 4 in this movie, none of them put a toe out of line. I mean, I can't think of a single delivery where I'm like, I would have done that differently with any of them. But I was just a special shout out to Danny Elfman. I mean, excuse me, Danny Elfman too, but Danny DeVito because I mean his performance, especially in the earlier scenes, I've never seen anything like it, and that kind of dedication to the grotesque, as I was saying. But one of my absolute favorite moments in the film is when he first meets Max and he's bringing out all the stuff out of the stocking to kind of blackmail him. And he, by the way, how's Fred Atkins? And he's like,
hey Max, I'm Fred's hand.
But before he breaks out the hand, and when Christopher Walken's character goes, he's good, and he kind of laughs through his teeth and doesn't open his mouth, but he goes, good, without opening his mouth.
Yeah,
it's such a divine performance. I mean, it's just perfection. And I think Danny DeVito brings so many teeny tiny moments, these micro moments that just make it so charming and real. Though he brings this realistic quality to the character that I love.
Definitely. There's another theme that I haven't brought up because it would take way too long to get fully into it, but called the film references the carnival-esque. And I don't just mean like the obvious kind of red triangle circus gang and such, but I think for me that scene is the perfect example of DeVito doing carnival-esque acting in the kind of like the way he's blackmailing Max, as you said, and the way he starts doing like an act of like I'm his hand, hey Max, remember me kind of thing, and even later
you
on,
want to meet any other body parts?
Yeah, and later in the same scene, like again talking about the black humor and the way it is kind of carnival-esque, and it plays with that, the way he's like spinning around the umbrella, and you think it's one of those like 1960s cheesy type things, and then Shreck just goes, "Is that supposed to hypnotize me?" No, just give you a splitting headache. It's not working. Then it just shoots him like, you big baby. That just blanks.
Yeah,
just brilliant, just perfectly great. Moving on then to the
killing sleeping children.
I know, right? Dodgy. stuff. I'm going to move on to the VFX production design because I don't want to take too much longer. But yeah, the production design in Batman Returns is staggering. It's worth mentioning. Warner Brothers invested $2 million to acquire the Gotham City sets at Pinewood Studios in England, planning to reuse them for sequels. They were under 24-hour surveillance because it was cheaper than rebuilding. And yeah, I think they're visually iconic. Paul
I
Welch took
also
over production.
read real quick that the Gotham City sets took up 50% of the whole Universal Studios lot at that time.
I can believe
They
it.
were all set up. The
Yeah.
entire,
Yeah,
And there
fair
was
enough.
so much use of forced perspective. So I believe I read some of those models, some of the miniatures were upwards of 1/16th scale. I mean, they were bigatures, as we say in the Lord of the Rings fan. You know, they were massive because they needed to be able to use that forced perspective, whether it was looking down the street or Batman looking down on the city.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. And I will kind of get into that. Yeah. As I said, Bo Welch took over production design, replacing the late Anton Furst from the first movie, and brought a darker expressionist aesthetic after collaborating with Burton on Beetlejuice and Edward Scissorhands, Sandy. He designed key props like the Bat ski boat, Penguin's umbrellas, and a Bat missile mode for the Batmobile. He also oversaw massive sets like Gotham Plaza and Penguin's Lair, but also supplemented those with miniatures to enhance the likes of the city's verticality, as Vean said. Style draws on German expressionist neo-fascist architecture and American precisionist painting. Streets feel like oppressive canyons, skyscrapers loom. It's a city designed to evoke alienation and danger. Welch studied fascist architecture and world's fairs to convey bureaucracy and control, then layered in street-level imagery of homelessness and decay to show the duality there. Costumes were equally meticulous. Bob Ringwood and Mary Vogt updated the Batsuit with a mechanical look, and Catwoman's fragile latex suit required dozens of backups. DeVito's Penguin relied on prosthetics by Stan Winston Studio. Shout out Stan Winston as well. Brilliant. This included, as I mentioned, black saliva for a grotesque effect. They also used 30 animatronic penguins, supplemented by penguin actors and digital effects. I'll move to the music and sound then. Obviously, we mentioned it's scored by Danny Elfman, as with I think all of Tim Burton's movies, are certainly a solid 90% or something.
All but two. Sweeney Todd obviously had an existing soundtrack.
Okay.
And Ed Wood, they had a falling out after Nightmare Before Christmas. So,
right.
Oh, what's his name? Starts with an H. It's not Hans Zimmer. It's the other one. Anyway, Howard Shore, I think, did Ed Wood. But then they made up.
Anyway, Danny Elfman was initially reluctant to score Batman Returns because he was unhappy that his Batman score was supplemented with pop music by Prince that Sandy loves. Elfman built on many of his Batman themes and said that he enjoyed working on Penguin's themes the most because of the character's sympathetic aspects like his abandonment and his eventual death. And the only other note I've got about music is how on the nose is it to use the song Super Freak? I mean, again, that's just pure Tim Burton, really, isn't it? You know what I mean? That's as soon as that song came on, I was like, "Oh, you didn't," but they did.
It's like the song that Danny Elfman co-wrote with Susie and the Banshees for this, Face to Face. That's basically my theme song. But I do think this is Danny Elfman's best score. I think you have three really haunting themes between Batman, Catwoman, and the Penguin, and the way he weaves them together, especially when it's combined with the visuals, as we were saying, in like that sweeping shot of the zoo, or when the Penguin emerges after falling through the glass and he stands up, and then the black blood or whatever we call it runs down his face, and how the violin meets up with that. I think it's really, really stunning. I do think it's his best work.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a contender for me, and it's one of my favorite soundtracks because it works. It enhances the film and works with it so well, but it's also a rare one for me that I can just listen to on its own without necessarily feeling like it's missing something from context, not having the visuals, if that makes sense. And I have to mention, I know it's actually technically from the first Batman movie, but the actual Batman theme has become like that, and John Williams' Superman theme have just become so iconic and linked to these characters that just every media since that uses Batman and Superman tries to incorporate them both somewhere. So you have to kind of mention how, just it's amazing. It's incredible work.
And what I liked about it is what makes what we think of as a Tim Burton film, it really isn't complete without Dan Elfman's music. And it's that whimsical use of xylophone. That really, makes it stand out. And it happens in the very beginning of the movie when they are putting baby penguin in that basket and setting him down the river, and the snow is falling, and that music is playing. It sets the whole tone, the whole mood from that very moment, and just continues throughout, of course. I'm not saying Tim Burton can't be just visual, but it's the visuals and the music that make it Tim Burton. I think they're inseparable.
Yeah, for sure.
Really.
Awesome. So I'll tell you what, we'll start with giving I always like to do favorite character, moment, and line. Then I'll move on to the audience responses, then our conclusions and scores. So yeah, starting with favorite character, favorite moment or scene, and favorite line from the movie. Vean, would you like to go first with those?
It's so, oh gosh, it's so hard to, I thought about this a lot, because I think I was messaging you this week, Mike, going, I can't pick. And it's really hard to say because it's all so interwoven. So from a personal standpoint, obviously Catwoman really resonates with me. Not just Catwoman, but Selena too. And that sort of reaction to trauma and this feeling of being all these separate pieces put together that don't quite fit and all these things. So, I mean, as amazing as all of the performances are, and with full kudos to them, Catwoman definitely for me is the standout. Um, Favorite scene, again, it's like, well, it depends on my mood. I mean, scene by scene, I don't think there's a beat that gets missed in this movie. So it's hard to say. There's not a scene where I'm like, ah, let me skip ahead. The one I would feel closest to that about is the Batmobiles wild ride. But
Yeah.
even that is enjoyable. So I think my favorite scene though has to be the ballroom dance with Bruce and Selena.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's so impactful, it's so powerful, and as you said, it has to do with the masks that we all wear and how we interchange those things to get through life, and what we need to present in any given moment. So how we have to have sort of an array of masks that we can swap out. Um, so I think that's definitely my favorite scene.
Just so well acted as well. I think it was
Yeah.
one of my first experiences. As I said, I was quite young, so it was one of the first times I was like, "Wow, this is what acting is." These
Yeah.
people are incredible. But yeah, okay. And your favorite line? Did you mention?
Um, it's that whole interchange between her. Do you want me to give the whole thing or just the last one?
Is it going to be the same one as mine?
It is. It is. I think I
Okay.
sent it to you last night. The
Yeah.
where he's confronting her about, well, are you here to see Max? And she laughs and
Oh
she
yeah.
says, no, she's gonna kill him, basically. And he says, who the hell do you think you are? And her response of, I don't, this very emotional, I don't know anymore, Bruce,
Yeah,
followed
and you
by
can do
this
it. You can do it
sort
better
of,
than that. Come on.
oh, do you want me to? Okay.
Go on.
Y-
Just
Yeah,
go
okay,
on.
Mike, give me the who the hell do you think you are? Go ahead.
Who the hell do you think you are?
I don't know anymore, Bruce. Like,
Yay! Awesome, Sandy. Over to you. Would you like to do
I'm
any acting performances? Would you like to act anything?
I'm
Yeah.
not for this one. It definitely isn't as well known to me. But my favorite actually is the penguin in this one.
Okay.
More for the comical aspect is something I appreciated more. His transformation from Danny DeVito, the actor, to um, Penguin, to Oswald, back to the Penguin again. I just really loved all of that. I think my favorite line of his is what we just mentioned before. My name is not Oswald, it's Penguin. I'm not a human being, I'm an animal. Just how he
Cold-blooded.
came back and accepted, himself as is, and that he was just really decided he was going to be evil. Him with all his umbrellas, just
Mhm.
really liked his whole thing. And as far as favorite scene, I had just mentioned it also, when he's in the graveyard. It's just such a beautiful scene. And it's
Oh
funny
my
how
God.
he
And that waltz. That waltz that Danny
Mhm.
Elfman wrote for that scene. Holy shit.
And it's just funny how he's playing that scene as contrived, but everyone's buying into it. And
Mhm.
I just think that's so funny. He's obviously play acting for the crowd there and being very melodramatic for the crowd, but it's just a great scene.
So yeah, I'll give you mine then. My favorite character is obviously Selina Kyle slash Catwoman. Despite the obvious differences, I think like this film captures the soul of that character better than any other adaptation before or since. The shared duality giving an extra dimension to the tortured romance is genius, and Michelle Pfeiffer's performance is nothing short of a tour de force. My favorite moment, it was, if I'm honest, it is the Bruce and Selina at the costume party scene, but I also knew that Vean would pick that. So I want to shout out, like I said, Catwoman blowing up the department store, and that leading to the first time all three characters meet, and the subsequent cat and mouse or bat and penguin chase that happens between there. So yeah, I think that's great. And that whole thing, I mean, from the very start, and again, I can quote every line in that scene the way it's like. I don't know whether to open fire or fall in love. Are you men always confusing your pistols with your privates? Don't hurt us, lady. Our take home's less than 300. You're overpaid.
You're overpaid.
Yeah, exactly. I love all that. And then leading into the chase. My favorite line was actually mistletoe can be deadly if you eat it, but a kiss can be even deadlier if you mean it. It's
Oh, come on,
classic.
Mike. That's too obvious.
No, it's classic film noir tragic romance stuff for me, and I think the repetition of it being used as the identity reveal is brilliant because it took what could have been a hokey moment or could have been handled really clunkily and was very clever. But
It was.
my close runner up is just a line that's always stuck in my head, and I do not know why. And it's not especially like laugh out loud hilarious or even noticeable, but it's when Batman takes his mask off to reveal himself to Selina, and Max Shreck just goes, "Bruce Wayne, why are you dressed up like Batman?" And she replies, "Because he is
Because
Batman,
he
you
is
moron."
Batman, you moron.
I don't know why that stuck in my brain, but it's
I
something about
love
the
that. I
delivery.
love that bit. No, that's great.
So yeah, that's my things. So yeah, over to you then, audience. I did, as I usually always do, put out a prompt onto social media to ask what you think of the film Batman Returns. We got a bit less response than I thought. There was some responses, but not a huge amount. So I'm going to dive into the things that I do have. Excuse me. So first of all, from my personal Facebook page, Cliff Chapman. Hey, Cliff, our regular Doctor Who contributor, says, in films that made me a raving sexual deviant, allegedly, I rank it highly. And no, I'm not doing my Terrence Dicks impression when I read it out loud. 5 stars, much imitated since to diminishing returns, possibly Tim Burton's opus. Everything else that's very Tim Burton-y is fine, but doesn't need to exist because it's a definitive explosion of Burton. Thomas Labanek, hey Tommy, says 4 out of 5.
Hey, Tommy.
I know a certain lady who's quite fond of this one. I don't know who you mean, Tommy. From Cinema of the 90s group, David Hinbust says, loved it. Walken, always a great villain. Penguin, disgusting, therefore perfect. Pfeiffer, one of the best Catwomen. Keaton does an admirable job, and it's the right sort of dark, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. From action and sci-fi movies of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, Johnson McKell says, me personally, I give Tim Burton's first Batman film 5 stars easy. Batman Returns, I give a good 4.5 stars. Okay. I think there is a debate, aliens style, between which is the better, but I'll leave that there. From the Silver Screen Group, Jay Hildreth says 5 stars, best Batman film, best DC film. Honestly, I'd probably rank it joint best comic book movie with Spider-Man 2. High praise. And yes, Spider-Man 2, great movie. From Instagram, Scott Summers 2022 on my personal page just says solid 3 stars. And yeah, I believe that's it. As I said, we didn't have as much as I kind of expected that we would about this movie. I would have thought it was more popular, but yeah, I mean, all positive feedback. Nobody had anything negative to say, and I don't think we're going to hear all that much negativity coming from us as we lead quickly into our conclusions and scores here. And I'm going to ask Sandy if I could start with you, if you don't mind.
You know, while this movie is so much Tim Burton, and you know, our very beginning in of cinema, Batman. I don't know. I can't even place my finger on why it's not higher up for me. There's so many things I love about this film, and Danny DeVito so much, and I do love this version of Bruce Wayne, and these villains I think are really great. but for whatever reason, it's just not, the best for me. So I still, even given the Gothic architecture, the visuals, the music, how well everything works together, I still do put it as just a kind of average movie for me. So I gave it a 3.8.
Oof.
I
Wow.
know,
Okay.
but it's just how I
Yikes.
feel. And again, I really can't put my finger on it. I think it's just everything as a whole. Maybe the things that I've seen and loved since. Maybe I'm doing an unfair ranking, but that is
Mm.
just where I put it.
For me, it's a 5 out of 5. I cannot think of anything about it I would change. It's and I won't go on at length because I've tried to be brief overall, but I can be a bit loquacious. So yeah, it's while I do think that Big Fish is Tim Burton's masterpiece, this may be they're 1 and 2 for me, these two films, and I think it is just such a wonderful marriage of 4 very dynamic performances that are so well integrated into the whole, with the use of practical effects, with the use of miniatures, with the use of sets, with the design, with the cinematography, particularly with the music, like Sandy was talking about the graveyard scene, and that waltz that Danny Elfman wrote for that scene is it's something out of the dream realm. And
Mm.
I just think this is Tim Burton doing definitive Tim Burton. And I'm glad to see it getting a bit of a revival, because I do remember how negatively it was received, because people were just expecting more of the same. They were expecting more of Batman 89. And then they got this and they're like, what the hell is this? This is something people, I think, were not ready for and weren't prepared for a long, long time, especially with the marketing towards children and everything, which I think there's no problem with marketing this towards children. I don't think it's a particularly offensive thing for children to see. So yeah, it's a 5 out of 5. I wouldn't change a thing.
Awesome. Yeah, it's one of those weird things. I used to kind of flip flop between whether I preferred Batman 89 or this, and now I can't choose between them. I think Batman 89 is a better Batman film, and Batman Returns is a better movie overall. So, yeah, it's a weird argument, which is
It's
odd
It's
because
funny.
apples
I'm
and
usually,
oranges. I mean, they're two
yeah,
different. That's
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It just occurred to me, though, my ranking of the movie, if this were a soundtrack ranking, it would absolutely score higher on the music alone. And that strikes me as odd and maybe helps me put my finger a little bit more on why
Okay.
I put it more meh.
Okay, fair enough. Well, my conclusion again, I always say this, sorry, it's going to be long and slightly pretentious, but I like to have it prepared. Over the years, I've come to worry less about what this film is not and to appreciate what it is. Is it a great Batman movie? Not really, though he does appear more than you might realize. He's definitely not the focus, though, with Burton and the film far more concerned with the villains. But in a world that now has dozens of Batman films, that's less of an issue. I adore Bruce and Selina's relationship. I'm intrigued by Penguin's transformation into a Burton-esque, macabre, grotesque figure, and Walken's Max Shreck is some pretty savvy satire without being too heavy-handed. All of the performances are outstanding, as is Burton's direction, the visual palette, the cinematography, the set design, everything. This thing is the most Tim Burton thing that ever Tim Burtoned, a line I had written before Sandy texted me that exact same thing while watching the movie. And yeah, you kind of have to appreciate the vision behind it, which I also find aesthetically lush and sumptuous. There are issues beyond sidelining the title character, but some are little slightly unimportant things, like the argument about Batman killing, disappearing eyeliners, or slightly overdoing the supernatural elements. But there's also an obvious sense of the missing subplot, i.e. Robin leaving a hole, and the film thus having an oddly paced ending in which Penguin has 3 evil schemes followed within about 10 minutes of screen time. Overall, though, this is so dense of a movie to explore, wonderful to discuss, and for me, it captures such a feeling of nostalgia, having captivated me since I was 10 or 11 years old. So much has become rightfully iconic, and in my opinion, it's a film that everyone should see. I gave it 4.7 out of 5, actually. So I also pulled a Sandy with a slightly odd in-betweeny type number, but I couldn't really go lower, and I also couldn't give it full perfect marks, although I was tempted. So in any case, weirdly enough, putting those scores together, dividing by the 3 of us here, gives a nice rounded up final score for Batman Returns of 4.5 out of 5. So yeah, can't
I
really
think that's
complain too
super
much.
fair.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, I mean, I think that works out more or less. And yeah, so As the snow falls on a familiar feline figure and that iconic symbol lights the wintry sky, just remains for me to thank Sandy for coming on another episode. Thanks.
Thank you very much for having me on this one.
No, you're very welcome. And did you have anything you wanted to plug anywhere people can find you? I always ask.
No, nothing really. Only thing that we didn't mention was my appreciation of them working in that Wilhelm scream when he threw that clown in the beginning.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
And yeah, thanks again to you, Vean. I knew you wouldn't have wanted to miss this one. Have you enjoyed this?
Oh yeah, thanks for having me. I tried to be brief, but I really
I think you were all
appreciate
right.
you letting me go on about this.
No, I think you were all right. It's a slightly longer
Yeah,
episode
you're
than
great.
We've had recently, but no, you've been good. And I don't think you've talked too much at all. And I appreciate your passion for the film, to be honest. I was kind of happy to open it up to you to discuss what you
Same.
love about it. It's always good to hear. So,
Yeah, as opposed to me usually tearing things down.
well, I didn't like to say that, but no, genuinely, I just like hearing
No, I
passion
know.
from people. So, but and did you have anywhere people can find you online? Anything to plug or anything?
I'm not super active, but Blue Sky is where I'm probably most active at Lady Vean, LadyVean.
Awesome. And of course, thank you, dear viewer or listener. Hopefully you've enjoyed diving back into this unique film. As I said, slightly longer episode than usual for recently, but I think this film deserved it and we had interesting things to say. So yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed yourself and you've even perhaps promoted this film to your festive viewing routine. I know that it's certainly been added to mine in recent years. You can follow us on multiple forms of social media by clicking on the link tree in the episode description. You can also click join on YouTube to become a channel member for as little as $2.99 a month and help us keep growing and get some sweet extras like extended episodes, special emojis, or your choice of film for us to review. And also do check out our merch store by clicking any of the sponsored items on this video. We're almost done for 2025, but we are back in just 9 days for our final podcast of the year as Cinema Classics rings in Christmas time with a truly legendary festive heartwarmer joining George Bailey for Christmas in Bedford Falls. Until then, do remember, Vean.
It's the so-called normal guys who always let you down. Sickos never scare me. At least they're committed.
Thank you, Vean. Good night, and come what may, Merry Christmas. Goodwill toward men.
And women.
I'm going to go feed my cat.
That was brilliant.
That's sweet. And I wish I could say the same, but I'm here for Max. What, not you and Max? No, this and Max. Now, don't give me the whole killing Max won't solve anything speech, because it will. Aren't you sick of that sanctimonious robber baron coming out on top when he should be 6 feet under? I mean, I know you've got problems with your boss, but who do you think you are? I don't know anymore, Bruce.
You have been listening to the Silver Screen Podcast, hosted by Mike Wilson. Follow us on social media, our YouTube channel, or wherever you get your podcasts. Link to all of these places can be found via the link tree listed in this episode's description. This podcast is a Media Matters original production, created, produced, and edited by Mike Wilson. We'd love it if you'd like, subscribe, and share us around like a beloved old video cassette. We hope to see you next time for more movie magic. Until then, remember, life moves pretty fast, so stop and watch a movie now and then.